know. If people want to wear a mask, that is okay. These are the things we know that prevent you from speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Welcome to Speaking Moistly, everybody. It is myself, Greg Wycliffe, and with the one and only Mark Poilievre. How are you doing today, Mark?
Good, man. Nice to see you as usual.
Yeah, and I can believe it, but, we're going to be talking about Pierre Poilievre today, being even less and less conservative by the day, as it seems. He seems to just be disappointing us over and over and over again. And we'll be talking about Olivia Chow and the violence in Toronto and how I think this establishment politician is going to do absolutely nothing about it. And we're going to be talking about the insane real estate prices and how laughable they are, really.
I was going to say, we're past insane now. It's like, it's just demoralizingly funny. Like, it's unbelievable. The great real estate on the market that if you had a couple of $1 million, you probably wouldn't spend it in Toronto. But a lot of people are, and I think that's weird. But what we should talk about that later. Let's talk about straight pride. Why are conservative politicians running away from straight pride? It's okay to be prideful about rainbows. It's okay to have pride in yourself. If you are gay or lesbian or bisexual, we're told that there is nothing but virtue in that group, right? Absolutely nothing but virtue. Everything they do is perfect. Right? So you're not allowed to be prideful about procreating. You're not allowed to be like, look what we made. What's up? Right? Like,
well, yeah,
I don't have to buy a puppy. I could just make one and another one.
Not a puppy, but the implication of, being prideful about being straight or especially being white is not good. You can be very proud of yourself if you're black, if you're Hispanic, if you're Asian, if you're indigenous, especially, if you're Jewish. But if you're proud of being white, that doesn't really come across well. And the same thing with being straight, right? Like you can celebrate being into fetish gear and how you like to put things where the sun don't shine. You can be very proud of that. You can be naked on Main Street or Church Street in Toronto for pride and have your pecker out in front of children and hey, like that's great. But if you wear a green t-shirt like this, oh my God, oh my goodness. And this is the same guy at the same event, I'm assuming, who took a picture with Danielle Smith and also with fake conservative Pierre Poilievre. So yeah. And what happened? Did you think that Pierre Poilievre was going to, obviously the media attacked him for these photos and all the leftists went crazy, but did you think that Pierre Poilievre was actually going to stand up for straight people? Is that what you thought was going to happen?
Me? No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that I thought that maybe he'd not talk about it. I don't know what I thought he would do. I mean, realistically, there's no other play for the globalist group of people than to denounce straight pride and align it or make it the same thing as being prideful about being white. Mm-hmm. And you're right. There's a lot of that CRT, critical race theory stuff pushing that, black pride is okay. Asian pride is okay. All of this other stuff, pride is okay. But if you're white, you're not allowed to be prideful. If you're straight, you're not allowed to celebrate that either. And I think it's an insidious thing. It's an insidious message to send to the whole broader community. And there is a disconnect between having the government 100% behind you being your valid, true self or whatever they're using for branding for pride all during the month of June. And then come July when somebody says, yay, procreation, I made my kids, woo. They're like, whoa, that's very bigoted. That's very strange. And so I think looking at this and looking at kind of the media circus around this, I'm not saying this is the case, because who knows who this guy is? Maybe he's just a guy who's proud of himself for procreating. Whatever, man. Great for it. Good on you, right? But maybe somebody exchanged money for a very quick and easy distraction for the media. You don't think it could be a plant? You don't think it could be a on purpose distraction? Like sometimes with magicians, they do something over here to distract you from what they're doing over here, right? So no?
So I think there's merit to what you're talking about, but I think in this case,
pull your mic up just a little.
Sorry, can you not hear that? Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
it's just you're far enough away. Yeah, that's better.
I think there's merit to what you're talking about, but in this case, absolutely not. Like the chances of a guy just wearing that t-shirt and happening to take a photo with both of them, I don't think that's that like insane or it must have been planned. You know, I think there's plenty of people who have those views in Alberta who probably just took a photo with them and
toss
like,
that shirt on.
Whatever. Yeah. Cause like the thing is with, I think of Jeremy McKenzie when he took a photo with Pierre Poilievre. And like,
right.
To be fair, he kind of knew what he was doing. He's like, this is probably going to get you some crap. And like, Pierre Poilievre didn't know that. But it's like, it's also just showing up to an event and taking a photo with a politician. This kind of stuff really speaks to how lame Canadian politics is, actually. It's freaking lame that it's like, oh my God, they took a photo. Like, who cares? Like it's so shallow, it's so uninspired, it's so like lowest common denominator, lowest level. Like I'm so tired of the political conversations in this country, and it reminds me of something that he's in the States now, but something that Tyler Russell said. He's like, politics in this country is so controlled. It's so controlled that even something like this of somebody with a problematic T-shirt needs to hit the news cycle to like try and like whoa, I can't have those ideas. Like it's so.
But that's what I mean. Like we've got a situation where there are like legitimate scandals. We have a House of Commons that's voted multiple times for an investigation. An investigation is going to be bullshit because of Chinese interference in our government, on top of the Chinese interference in our elections. And now we're in the summer break. People are camping. People have forgotten about it. There are real, honest to goodness scandals. And instead of having newspapers spend time on that, they're spending time on is a straight pride shirt something that this guy should be taking a picture of? And it's bullshit. Like 100%, I totally 100% agree with you. I'm so tired of it because it's trite and tiresome because it's not getting to any of the issues. But it's one of those things where it's frustrating as all get out because nobody ever solves any problems. We are distracted with bullshit stories like this instead of, hey, the Globe and Mail saying there is Chinese interference in our everything. We should deal with that, right? And like if that was something, they would deal with it.
You definitely have a point, and this is something that I thought of a couple months ago, which is maybe the conservative Twitter feed and the rage bait cycle, maybe that's the bread and circuses, guys. Maybe that is part of the bread and circuses is like, being distracted with the culture war, being distracted with the, oh my God, straights versus gays, like the whole thing. Meanwhile, it's like, they're getting ready to pass laws that are going to take away our freedom of speech. Like, have you seen what's happening with, Pastor Artur Pawlowski, actually? Like, there's a lot of big decisions coming up this summer, actually, between the guys in Coots, between Jeremy McKenzie, between Artur Pawlowski, that are like, very much going to be instructive of, what this country looks like freedom-wise. That freedom thing, that freedom thing that we all like to talk about, like going to be very, very consequential to our freedoms. And, So I don't necessarily disagree. In a way, this is a distraction. However, I do think it's important to point this out to, people are so distracted with Trudeau hate. The people that want to save this country are more awake to what's going on. They're so distracted with Trudeau hate that they're giving Pierre Poilievre like a pass all the time. They're like, oh no, he's fine. He's the guy. And it's like, he's really not. Like, he's really not the guy. And that's not to say, hey, go live in the woods or whatever. But it's like, it's time to, we need to save ourselves here because this Conservative Party of Canada is really not it. They're just more of the same with the blue tie.
Yeah, well, but I don't know what save ourselves means in the context of our electoral system at this point in time, because it seems like it is, I mean, at the very least compromised by China. And so if we get, let's say Justin Trudeau's government collapses tomorrow, right? Jagmeet Singh wakes up and grows a conscience or something like that. I don't know. And he says, okay, we got to drop this government. They drop the government. And then we're plunged into an election with no fix to the Chinese infiltration, with no real investigation into it, no idea who's involved, no idea which MPs, no idea of anything. If anybody wanted to actually get to the bottom of what was going on, they would stop the cycle of corrupt elections. They would have a caretaker government that was headed by, I don't know, a loyal Canadian military man, but I don't know who I would name. And you'd actually try and get to the bottom of it and then run a paper election before you can rule out, other malfeasance, right? Because there are different ways, like mail-in ballots is one way to fix an election. Drop boxes is another. Dominion is another. Not letting certain people, right? But not letting certain people run ads is another. Limiting people on Twitter is another. Like there's so many ways, and we've got all of them running in Canada right now.
Yeah, and I when it comes to actually solving the problem, it's hard to do that when you don't have any political power, right? Like when you don't have any sort of place in office. And when I say save yourself, I guess the idea is, don't kid yourself. If you really want to help, then you do actually need to confront just how bad things are in this country. Because I think that kind of like being kind of towed along and being kind of like, having the keys dangled in front of you like a child by the Conservative Party, I don't think that helps anything. In a way, like they are the people in the way from actually having a real resistance to the corruption or to this establishment, because they pretend to be against the establishment. They pretend to be against all this globalist stuff when really they are kind of like the lead blockers. They're the ones that are actually gatekeeping people like myself and you and all the other dissidents from actually having our voices heard. So I think they're the number one problem in this country. Of course, Trudeau, this and that. And it's like, no, this Conservative Party really has to go. And it starts with talking about it. It starts with confronting how bad things really are and trying to get as many people on that same page and moving them in the same direction. Right.
Yeah. I was kind of talking about that on my show today, talking about how the Conservatives they will be very acceptable to a lot of people because it'll be the policy changes that they're talking about are such that it would be impactful. If they just got rid of the carbon tax, then the overtaxed that we were previously would seem like a break, but it's not really, right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? And so like they're not really looking at fixing the problems. Like I often talk on my show about how if we wanted to in Canada, we could build a pipeline system and pump enough oil to supply ourselves with oil and set the price at the pumps if we wanted to. And we could do that. It could be a 5-year project. Yeah. But the people who are in charge don't make that kind of a priority, and you have to wonder why. And the only reason I come to is that they're not working on our side. Anyway, sorry, Karen.
No, you're right. It could be so much better. It could be so much better. So much better here. Right. And that's one of the like excuses that so many people give. Well, it's not Cambodia. Like it's not as bad as Venezuela. It's like, why are you comparing us to third world countries?
They're not putting us on boxcars. Okay. Stop complaining, guys. Like,
yeah. No, it's total insanity. The copes that people come up with. And yeah, I think part of the idea of like saving yourself is like, hey, don't kid yourself. Okay.
I had a family reunion, summer family reunions and things like that. So there was somebody's cousin's wife, and they were talking.
Not sure if I do, but okay.
Well, you know what I mean. You're at a family reunion,
a family function during the summer, sure.
Yeah, well, family, like you get together and you're like, oh, hey, who's that? Nice to meet you, so on and so forth. And like, of course, as you're sitting around talking and things, politics comes up. And usually I get up and leave. I'm just like, oh, I can't because, we're going to get into something.
You need to hide your power levels. You don't want to get people angry.
Oh man, I was just like, nope, not right now.
You want to stay a family. You don't want to break the family.
Well,
up.
right, exactly. Everybody's like, whoa, hold on a second. Like,
the earth is flat. There's a firmament. Yeah.
I was the guy. What?
Can you pass the ketchup? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. What did you say? Mega 2020. What? I mean, what? So like, I was already that guy, so I just stayed quiet. But she was saying something to the effect of like, well, it wasn't so bad. And I was like, what wasn't so? I was like, what wasn't so bad? I just want to be clear about what we're talking about. What wasn't so bad? Well, like they were just trying to help. I was like, who were just trying to help? And she was talking about COVID lockdowns and all the rest of it. And I was like, you have to understand. They were saying the cover of the Toronto Star said, "We hope unvaccinated people die." They were saying like, we're going to withhold healthcare from unvaccinated people. This is not like, okay, this isn't like a little bit authoritarian. This is what the F? Like, we need to deal with the crazy crap that our government said. The government lied to the entire population about things that they shouldn't have lied to the entire population about. And now they're moving on like, hey, happy puppy day. And you're like, you remember that time you said this was safe and effective? And now we find out that like, you probably knew it wasn't. So like, what's up with that?
Yeah. And this is why I think the approach needs to be not like real violent, but like, metaphorically violent. Like people like this need to be like violently ripped out of their like comfort zone to be like, no, it's really like a lot worse. I mean that metaphorically, of course.
Yeah. So listen, Survivor, the TV show, the game show Survivor.
Yeah.
It is about your death, right? It is about death. Like your life on the island is voted out by people, and they're very comfortable talking about it because they're just writing your name. But what we need is a huge blindside. The public needs to blindside these people. Do you know what I'm talking about? Did you ever watch Survivor?
Yeah, I did. But is blindside, is that part of the
You're talking. It's the same metaphorical thing that you're talking about. You're saying metaphorically, these people need to like be violently shaken out of their comfort zone. So I'm talking about going to tribal council. And those people who are in charge of the group, they're very sure that they're in charge. And then all of a sudden, they are out, MFR. You see what I'm saying? Like, they need to be violently shaken out of their comfort zone.
Mark, a Survivor analogy? We're using Survivor analogies now?
I love the strategy of Survivor, and I love the strategy of Jeopardy. It is ridiculous.
I don't even know what to say
players. Listen, if I'm watching Jeopardy and the player doesn't know how to use the daily double and doesn't bet right, I'm like, you are a smart person, but you don't understand the strategy of the game you are playing. And Boston Rob looks at other Survivor players and he says, you may be a smart person, but you don't understand that this is a social game.
You watch too much TV, Mark. I'm sorry to say. You watch too much TV.
I haven't watched Survivor in years. Okay, but that's how violently they need to be ripped out of their comfort zone. They need to be blindsided, and they have to go take a walk of shame.
And the thing is, this is why I always, whenever I can, encourage, especially conservatives or dissidents or people to push the rhetoric and make it more exciting, more different, and to bring up an example, we have Billboard Chris talking about this whole situation with the straight pride t-shirt. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre does not agree with straight pride message. Only certain identities can have pride. Deluded conservative voters still think this man will do something about gender ideology or child transition. Even somebody like Billboard Chris, just by going out there and saying children cannot consent to puberty blockers, like this is something that is like radical, apparently it's radical and so disruptive to just have somebody going out there day in and day out saying something as simple as that. And, when we have a leader of the Conservative Party who won't even champion Billboard Chris's like sane, totally normal statement, won't even like stand with the straight pride t-shirt. Like this is the exact opposite of what needs to happen. We need someone who's going to disrupt the conversation, shake people awake to how bad things are. And he's literally helping people stay asleep. Pierre Poilievre is literally helping people stay asleep in a little establishment bed, making their bed. And like that, like,
I think that's, but you're saying that, okay. And like, I agree there's maliciousness on the part of our politicians, and I'm not trying to excuse. I'm just saying, I think it's probably a political strategy, because if you had hard truths or allow people to continue dreaming, hey, listen, man, I just think that they're playing political strategy. I would think it's a good strategy.
You're such a thick skull. What? No. It's not political strategy. That's what they tell their base. Instead of
You have to
saying
meet
like, hey,
people
I
where they
stand with straight pride and
are.
actually like pleasing their base, they say, hey guys, we need to play nice with the media. Then once we're in, then we're going to start being conservative. And I've explained this many, many times. Like, that is not how it works. It's the opposite, actually. Because when Pierre Poilievre was running for leadership, he said, yeah, I'm with the trucker convoy. Yeah, I'm I'm against all this tyranny and everything. Totally. And then he gets voted in as leader of the Conservative Party. Immediately, he starts to dial that back. Immediately, he's like, actually,
Yes.
You know what? I'm
And
actually
he takes off his glasses.
I'm actually not with those guys anymore. Actually, I'm not even going to complain about the Emergencies Act. And it continues. And like, he dialing it back. And you think, oh, once he gets voted in, he's going to, no. Like, no.
I didn't
Again,
do that.
you're wrong. You need to confront how bad things truly are. Like, you like having any faith at all in this Conservative Party is such a major, major mistake. And yeah, you're wrong. You're wrong on so many levels. And
Do you
that's
think that I have faith in the Conservative Party? Is that what you heard? Did you think that I do?
By saying that they're just employing strategy, that employs that there's some sort of good intention. There's something still there worthwhile. That's what it sounds like.
No. I think they're crazy. Like, okay, so like Cobra Commander, if he was planning a strategy and like G.I. Joe was making a mistake or something like that, he wouldn't stop G.I. Joe making the mistake. Sorry, do I need to stop making analogies? I'm just saying it's a craven.
But the strategy, like it is the strategy. If the strategy is to continue to cuck and weaken real conservatives in Canada, that's the strategy. But you're thinking, oh no, it's just to like win power in the eyes of the establishment or like the normies or whatever. I don't think that's true. Like, if the Conservatives actually wanted to win more support and actually become a force to actually win an election, they wouldn't be doing this either. I totally reject that notion. It's this idea, if we be good slaves for the media, if we be good slaves to the liberal media, then they will reward us. Let me bring this up actually, because it perfectly exemplifies it from the prolific memester himself, the Ferryman's Toll. Is it this one or is it this one? It still amazes. So this is basically a liberal person who's like, Poilievre didn't march in a pride parade and didn't bother to show up to the Parliament Hill pride flag raising, but he's just thrilled to get a photo with a homophobic fan. Didn't buy the I didn't see this t-shirt BS. Yeah, you did, Pierre. Grow up. And then the Ferryman's Toll says, it still amazes me that these conservative leaders haven't figured this out. There is no amount of apologizing or compromising you can do with these people. They will demand you apologize for everything, and then they will continue attacking you when you do. Figure it out. Like, you don't think that they figure this out yet? You know what I mean? Like you really think that there's that stupid to keep using that strategy of continuing to lose?
I think so. Like Poilievre, O'Toole had a strategy of basically like voting block coalitions.
But once again, is the strategy to weaken conservatism and nationalism in Canada from the globalists? Yeah, so I agree with you there. But again, it's the strategy of winning the election or like trying to please the media. That is like,
they don't care about winning the election. So like, I agree that the Conservatives are on the same side as the Liberals, on the same side as the Greens, on the same side as the NDP. They're all basically doing the same thing.
So we agree. So what do you mean this is part of the strategy then?
So, well, I mean, part of the strategy is looking like you're going to solve the problem and then head faking and not solving the problem, but wasting time, because the time wasted is time to institute their plan further without opposition, without real opposition, right? So like, So
it's part of their strategy to make it look like they're trying to like win.
Yeah, for one more analogy, if you're robbing the bank and you're the robbers and you have another team at the front of the bank that looks like police officers who were first on the scene, then you're going to have more time and they're going to be like, oh yeah, we were here 5 minutes ago. These guys are just real slippery. I'll be right back. Yeah, they're here. Get out of here. Go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's probably
so. It's their strategy as crooks to make it look like they're trying to help us, but they're not.
To continue the grift and to continue to waste our time chasing our own tails, trying to fix the party, trying to I don't know, having Maxime Bernier maligned further, and all of the people who are trying to fix this problem. I mean, not just Bernier and PPC, but there are other independent people across the country and provinces who are trying to fix things too.
Sure, but let's be clear there. That's not the strategy to win the next election and win public support. That is the strategy to trick the people into getting our support, to remain like as conservative, like slaves to them. Right. So it's that's a big distinction there. It's almost 3:00, and
holy smoke.
Do you have to go at 3 or what?
Yeah, I've got to go soon after 3. But we could talk about let's talk about the increased violence in Toronto.
Right. So Olivia Chow, pro Beijing groups claim credit for helping Olivia Chow win Toronto mayoralty. She says she was unaware. I mean, I personally know somebody who there was a shooting like a few days ago. A mother of 2 died. This was, and this is in Leslieville, which is supposed to be one of the nicer areas of Toronto. This happened in broad daylight outside of a Shoppers Drug Mart. I know someone who was there who like the gunman like ran by him. According to my friend, they said they were like a late teens black person, and they were like running away and like shooting behind them at the same time or something like this, shooting at 2 other black guys. And obviously didn't hit them, but hit some poor innocent woman who was like just standing there. And the thing is like you see the clip from Olivia Chow, and if you close your eyes, you can imagine it's just John Tory. You can imagine it's just the same establishment. Oh, this is so terrible. Oh, we got to do something about this. And it just makes me so angry that, this is exactly what I predicted would happen if we have another establishment politician in there. It's like, oh, more shootings, more death, no action, just more empty words, while, more stabbings on the subways and more shootings, and absolutely nothing gets done about it.
Yeah, well, and then they even claim that they've tried to do things and while loosening policies for keeping people in jail who are violent, etc., and allowing people who are using guns and illegal guns to get back on the street very quickly. They claim, oh, we're trying to do something about this, when really they're loading neighborhoods with drug addicts and flooding the streets with free, safe supply drugs. It's just, I mean, it's offensive. The idea of
I'm offended.
The idea of having like a mother just walking around in downtown Toronto and getting like hit by stray bullets would have shocked people years ago, to the point of action. Like shocked. I thought the Danforth shooting was going to really spur some change, and when it didn't, I was kind of surprised because of the way it was managed in the paper. And now that this has happened, and it really, not even a politician has mentioned it, and they're not gonna, right? So like, what does that mean? How does that square? You know what I mean? It's very, very frightening.
And that's a great point. It's like, let's face it, guys. If you're a real conservative, it's a home run. Okay, you have someone who, I don't know whether they were born here or not. They're obviously not respecting anything to do with our laws. They don't. I doubt they're a lawful gun owner. If they're a young black teenager just like popping off in the street. There's a lot to talk about here. And, they don't want to touch it because the media might call us racist for talking about that. And this is exactly why, once again, we need to call it the conservative politicians in this country. They're not going to talk about it. They're the ones that are supposed to be opposing the terrible liberals destroying our country. And they're not saying anything. They're just sitting on their hands because they don't want the media to pick on them. So it's like, okay, I guess it's up to the people. But the first thing that people should do is absolutely condemn these fake conservatives who are pretending to fight for us, and they're not saying anything. They're duds. They're dog water.
The other aspect of it, though, and I mean, like we talked about this very briefly. Briefly, we talked about this at the beginning of the show. With if people abandon these parties, it doesn't seem like voting for other parties is yielding the changes that we want.
When's the next election?
2025.
Yeah, so who cares? That's you know how many shootings and stabbings in Toronto is going to happen between now and the next election? A lot.
Yeah, it's just frustrating because like I don't know. It's difficult.
Hopefully not, but
Hopefully not. Yeah, right. It's difficult to cast. It's difficult to have faith in a system that's failed so often and so regularly, and that we have proof is being manipulated by a foreign entity, and
Well,
we have to
and
use that flawed system to save ourselves. You know what I mean? It's like, here's a boat. Yes, it has a big hole in it. No, you can't have the bailing bucket. Have a good trip. You know what I mean? Like, we're effed, man. And it just feels like we're supposed to save ourselves with this. You know what I mean? Like, the system itself is flawed, and the flaw favors these people who are not working for us. And so I don't know how to fix that in a real practical way. And like, I don't know that politics is the fix for this, because it seems like if you are in a country like Haiti right now, we're sending $100 million for police officers to go break up a gang war in Haiti, that if you look more into it a little bit, is more than it seems. And it looks like Haiti is trying to take control of their government from people who are maybe not wanting the best for them. But I don't know enough, because I'm just, a Canadian in Ontario, and Haiti politics are not my, bread and butter. So I don't keep all that apprised of it. But I think that Canada sending $100 million and like police, et cetera, police or military to aid with this, is just an unbelievable response. And what do you think people will do if Canada by itself breaks free? Macron's not gone. You know what I mean? Like, Macron's another WEF young global leader who's got huge, massive riots on his hands. They didn't depose him. He's not gone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be dooming. I'm trying to say these are real barriers that we should be addressing with regards to the real struggle, the real fight that we have to deal with this in a real way, in my opinion.
What real barriers? What do you mean barriers?
Like, if France is rising up in those kind of numbers, like, you've seen what's going on in France with the riots and all that other stuff. And I mean, so the riots are being propagated by people who are trying to destabilize France, I think, probably. And so there were patriots who were getting out there, but the yellow vests tried to remove Macron, right? You know what I mean? And that failed. And they were years of protests and all sorts of civil unrest. And that hasn't done anything to dislodge Macron. And even these most recent riots, which again, I admit are more complicated than they seem at first look, that hasn't done anything to fix their situation. I mean, all of Europe is in a situation where the EU itself, I mean, Hungary and Poland are telling the EU, we're not going to take your migrants. That's not happening. We're not going to, like, there's a quota and we're not going to do it. So like, these things are going to lead to conflict. You know what I mean? It's difficult for countries to prosper when their governments are working against them, and you can't have the will of the people expressed through a peaceful power transfer, right? And it seems like there's less and less of that. And even there are layers of government, like the EU's telling Poland and whatever, you have to do this. And so the people of Poland and Hungary don't want to do this. Their leaders say, we're not going to do this. And then the EU says, we're going to force you to do this through use of military, use of sanctions, use of whatever, right? Like, that's a problem. And I don't know that voting is going to solve that here or there. And that's,
Yeah, but when did I ever say that voting is going to solve the problem? I never even said that. I said holding these politicians accountable, and also also just kind of like raising our consciousness and awareness of just how crooked they are, and how because think of it this way. Yes, Trudeau is somebody that like really gets people's blood pumping. It gets them really upset, right? It's like, oh my God, this guy's destroying our country. But then Pierre Poilievre says, hey man, I got this, bro. Don't worry, I got your back. You just sit down. And people are sitting down, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to sit down."
Yeah,
that's the problem. That's the problem. That people are listening. That
a lullaby.
That people are listening to this, PP pacifier,
mm-hmm.
and they're going back to sleep.
I don't ever want to hear that noise again.
And that's why, we need to rub it in people's faces. This is actually something that I brought up on my Telegram channel a few days ago. But it's like, dissidents, conservatives, whatever, right-wing people in Canada, we need to really look at what's happening in France and rub it in the faces of conservative, like, baby boomers, and be like, race is a real thing. Mass migration has real consequences, and rub their face in it till it hurts. Cause it's like, it looks like
there was an Order 66 given. But I'll talk about that in a minute, because there's a movie that had the same premise as this whole French riot that was supposed to dislodge a racist French government. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. It's on Netflix.
You don't think it has
It's called
anything to do with
Athens, I
mass
think?
migration and race?
No, it certainly does. It certainly does. Yes.
Right.
No, they don't have to do anything other. They don't have to do anything other than put males into a country, and then there's competition, and then the competition overflows for females, for land, for everything. Competition, competition, competition. You asked.
Right, but if
what
the competition is just between French males, do you think they're going to be burning buildings?
No, that's what I said. All they had to do was increase the flow of the people. All they had to do was dump those people. They didn't have to do any more, but they did more. That's all I'm saying. But they didn't have to. The strategy part one is dump people. That will cause conflict. And then part two is egg the conflict on with paying people for conflict. That just is it seems to be happening. But you asked when did you say voting them out? And I view, or maybe improperly assumed you meant holding people accountable as voting them out, right? Like that's step one, you vote them out. So of holding them accountable. And then two, you arrest them, right? Because you can't investigate somebody who's sitting in the prime minister's chair, right? Like he's just, not that he's just going to change the laws, but it hasn't worked up till now. We haven't been successful doing that. It's very difficult to investigate somebody with the power of changing laws in the country, right? And so I think that it's folly to think that we can reasonably do this the way that we're doing this. And the way that we're doing this is just nonsense anyway. It's ridiculous.
Well, when I think of the French example, the example in France, there's probably a lot of people who are getting very like red-pilled right now, and in a very kind of like horrific way, where it's like, holy shit, here's the consequences of multiculturalism at my doorstep, and it's really ugly. Where are those people going to go? And I don't mean like, physically where we're going to live. I mean like politically, what trajectory are they going to take? And that could be, the answer could be a variety of answers, but what ideally there is a container, there is a landing pod where like the red people, did you get red pilled by migrant riots in France? Here is a political organization that is like here for you, that can then become, part of a people moving in the same direction, like creating the sort of group of people that's like, I'm like-minded. And like, as dominoes continue to fall in Canada, whether it's like, the economic crisis that's probably going to happen, as the real estate bubble continues to burst, whatever it is, whatever might happen, where's the landing spot for these people? Because they're going to go somewhere. They're going to go somewhere. And, people like to confuse or reduce politics down to, it's just elections, or like, elections will never save us. But politics is just, power and the masses moving in a certain direction to win power or to change power. It's the masses moving in a certain direction to win power or whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
So
I would agree. Yes and no, but there's also culture war stuff in there. And I mean, like that's a whole, we should have a debate talking about culture wars, won or already lost or possible to win. I don't know. I think it's already lost, but like, it's not just politics, because this whole transgender thing has been propped up by a propaganda campaign. It's not just the masses moving together. There are people who push the masses to move together. And so I agree with you. There's a lot of culture. There's a lot of, the society is going in this direction, but there are hidden hands pushing the society to move in certain directions. And my example is transgender cult, I think.
Yeah, sure. But there's also a force of one individual like Billboard Chris. So,
yes, certainly true.
Right.
Certainly true. Yep. Good point.
And the thing is Billboard Chris is just doing something very simple over and over and over again. And he's accumulated like 250,000 Twitter followers.
Yep. So and he's met with presidential candidates and had important meetings with important people in multiple states. Met with what's the Moms for Liberty? I can't remember the name.
Right. So that is Billboard Chris. He's an individual who has political power now because he has.
Well, I interviewed him.
Yeah. So have I.
I was just kidding. No, obviously.
I don't get it. What's the joke?
No, there? I was just joking. Like, obviously you made it because I interviewed him, but I'm just kidding.
God. Anyway, yeah, but that's a great example. Nobody voted for Billboard Chris. Billboard Chris has clout, and it's probably going to come to the point where he continues to bother Pierre Poilievre, and as more people continue to bother Pierre Poilievre, there's going to be pressure on him to actually, I don't know, embrace conservatism, or his base are gonna, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, but that's kind of that power struggle among the right wing is productive, and it's kind of where things like, you know, there needs to be kind of more infighting on the right wing, I think, right now to kind of get rid of the fakers.
Yeah, it's certainly true. The Billboard Chris being such a fly in the ointment and really kind of putting a point on this and saying this politician does not speak about this policy and this is wrong. And like he's got them. I mean, I don't think there's anybody else with more clout on this issue than Billboard Chris who's speaking out against this. You know what I mean? Like he's interviewed everybody or he's talked with everybody about this and he's well known. And so, yeah, like it's very interesting. I'm interested to see if the conservatives are forced to respond or if they just completely ignore it and say we're supporting LGBT and that's the end of the conversation, et cetera. But I got to go, man. I was going to pick the people that I need to pick up. I can go now.
Thanks for joining us, Mark. Where can they find you?
Oh, yeah. Check CanadaPoli.com. I do an hour-long daily show about Canadian politics, trying to have a humorous bent, but it's getting less and less easy to make it funny, I guess. Because everything is so ridiculously serious, but it's also bonkers. Like it's absolutely crazy. So, I mean, if you're in touch with reality, it's funny just what's going on.
Yeah. And speaking of which, we're actually going to end on a couple of real estate videos that just kind of just show the insanity of what's going on here in Canada. So I'll let you go, Mark, but I'll play these videos as we end the live stream here.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun to hang out and good seeing you. And we'll see you again soon. And thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, no problem. So this video here is comparing Vancouver real estate to Vancouver real estate prices to celebrity mansions. So let's give this a watch. So that's a Frankie Muniz mansion of $2.79 million. Okay, that's Frankie Muniz is the guy that was in Malcolm in the Middle. And then here is a house in Vancouver, BC with 5-bed, 4-bath, also $2.8 million. Look how small that looks in comparison. Emily Blunt's $3.25 million mansion in California. And then this is a 5-bed, 4-bath in Vancouver, like in a row house. This is insane. Peter Thiel, $8 million. The co-founder of PayPal. Wow, I don't know where this is. This is San Francisco home. $8 million. And then that's 7.9 somewhere in Vancouver. Doesn't look nearly as luxurious, to be honest. Nice property, though. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We will talk to you next time.
These are the things we know that prevent you from speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. I'm not a medical expert. These are the things we know. Keep 2 meters apart. What I have heard from medical experts. These are the things